Hello and welcome back to Craftcast, the Freemasons podcast. As always, I have with me
Sean
and
James.
How are we, guys?
Yes, very well, thank you. Very well. The weather, it has started to turn, I think it's fair to say. I left the house this morning and there was what I imagine is sun.
Yes, it's a weird
glowing
concept.
yellow ball in the sky.
You saw something. You assumed
Well, the
it was
sky
sun.
wasn't grey and it wasn't raining, so I was able to look up and there was this weird yellow thing in the sky. I don't know what it was, but yeah.
I went to a lodge meeting last week and I got in the car sort of mid-afternoon, put my jacket in the back, got in the car and then realised it's sunny and the dashboard says it's like 20 degrees. What is going on here? This is not what I expected. So yes, the weather is definitely turning for the better. Thank goodness.
Stephen, how are you?
I'm well, thank you for asking.
You're wearing a very, very nice shirt.
Thank you.
It's a very
It was
jazzy.
actually, I got it for my birthday,
Someone bought it for you, or you bought it with your birthday money?
the second one.
You bought it with your birthday money, right? Okay.
I got it for my birthday dinner. So
It's lovely.
It's very
Thank
nice.
you very much.
Very jazzy.
Of course, you're not that our listeners can see this, but of course you're slightly more
Overdressed.
compared to Sean and I, because you've got a Mark meeting this evening
Yes.
as we're recording.
Yes, I'll be installed in the chair of Kelvin Mark this evening in London at Mark Mason's Hall. So yeah,
Eighth time in some chair of some units.
Sixth time.
And how old are you, just remind us?
I'm 25. Yeah.
Wow. Well done.
Thank you,
Amazing,
that's
mate.
kind of you.
Now, worshipful brother Butler,
Hello.
what are we talking about on today's episode?
That's new. Yeah.
That sounds good, actually. Yeah, I like that. So we are talking to Pat and Alan, who are two Freemasons from Bristol, and they have been doing some really important work around humanitarian aid. Now, obviously, it goes without saying that UGLE and Freemasonry has a proud history of humanitarian aid. So just to list off some examples, all the way back in 2004 with the Indian Ocean tsunami, UGLE donated money there. The Haiti earthquake in 2010, the horrible earthquake and tsunami that hit Japan the following year, Nepal, hurricanes in the Caribbean, and then, of course, the Turkey and Syria earthquake a couple of years ago. Freemasonry was very much at the forefront of fundraising efforts and donated £60,000 to the British Red Cross in that particular one. So we have a proud history of doing it, and we just thought that it was a good topic to cover on a podcast, didn't we, James?
We did, and of course we appreciate that given the nature of the issue we're going to be talking about, politics can come into it, but UGLE, Freemasonry, we are an apolitical organisation. So on today's show, we're going to be exclusively focusing on the humanitarian relief effort and the actions being taken by Bristol Freemasons and the charity they're involved with to provide aid to anybody in the region who requires it. And we're going to keep politics out of it, just like we do with everything else in Freemasonry.
Because we're, of course, talking about Ukraine.
Correct.
Yes.
Even on you said all of this was at UGLE level. Even if you look at provincial, district level, lots of, as this is Bristol Freemasons, this is also on a smaller level. I'm sure your respective provinces or Met Grand Lodge can relate. But even at home, we recently, it was in one of the latest editions of FMT that we donated money, and we'd sent a few vans over across to Morocco when the earthquake hit in the Atlas Mountains.
Yeah, wow.
And that quick humanitarian aid was so important to them and had such an impact. So yeah, I'm really excited that we're talking about this really important topic to all of us as Freemasons to help those who are less fortunate than ourselves.
Great. Well, James.
Brethren, assist me to open the podcast.
Oh.
Well, Pat and Alan, welcome to Craftcast, the Freemasons podcast. Great to have you with us today. Pat, I thought we could just start with you. A brief introduction. So who are you? How long have you been a Mason? What's your role in Masonry and in what we're going to be talking about today?
Thanks again for having us. I'm Pat Nagel, so I've been a Bristol Mason for 8 or 9 years now. Recently been made the Provincial Grand Mentor, so supporting the Lodge Mentors with member engagement and retention. Very involved in the members' pathway. I've got involved in this charity from Bristol with Love for Ukraine a couple of years ago. I've done a couple of missions myself, driving aid across Ukraine. I've now become a member of the advisory board, and I've been really overwhelmed by the support across the province of Bristol in terms of ensuring there is a legacy to the work that I've been involved in. And we've now sent 7 van loads of aid from Ukraine, all driven by Bristol Masons, with payloads fundraised and donated by Bristol Masons.
Amazing. And Alan, what about yourself?
Alan Reid. I've been a Mason for 34 years now, and various roles within the province of Bristol. And I became aware of this particular charity when Pat mentioned it 2-3 years ago. And I ummed and ahed whether I should be involved or not. We're involved in many charities, as we all know. And this particular one struck me for what was going on. And I thought it was a tangible way of helping to help the people of Ukraine at grassroots level. So I approached Pat and felt that I could add something, even if only a transporter, and I would do it again at a drop of a hat.
Let's jump straight into it. Can you tell us how this particular initiative started, and also what inspired Bristol Freemasons to take the direct action that you have in delivering humanitarian aid?
The initiative really came out of sprung from a Masonic event. So I was hosting an event to celebrate the 150th anniversary of St Vincent Lodge in Bristol. We had a gala dinner and a charity auction, and one of the guests that I was speaking to said that he was about to go and deliver some humanitarian aid for Ukraine. So I was immediately entranced by this. So what's the story? He said, I'm driving with my wife. We're doing it under the banner of a local charity, From Bristol with Love for Ukraine. I thought, what a romantic notion. And I spoke to the charity the following week, signed up, told my wife that we're driving to Ukraine. She said, not on your life. So I had to look further afield. And I started to call friends of mine within Bristol Masonry, and was really blown away by the response. So very quickly I found 3 other drivers to accompany me on this initial mission. This is going back 2 years now. So April 2023 was the first one.
Yeah.
And since then, I've had more and more Masons from the province come forward and say that this is a great idea. We want to get involved. They've got involved in different ways. There's been a lot of fundraising, generous donations of generators and other aid, and most importantly, people coming forward and saying, I want to volunteer as a transporter. That's helped this mission continue. And we've built a really close partnership between Bristol Masons and this grassroots charity, and it's really put the Masons in the spotlight in the public domain.
Brilliant.
And what kind of aid are you taking over there? What are you transporting?
So the charity has a partner organisation within Ukraine that's, again, full of volunteers, but we always respond to their needs. So it's changed over the last 2 years. At times it's been, we want winter supplies, warm clothing, camping gear, cookers.
Yeah.
At the moment it's generators. That there's been this sort of long concerted assault on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, and so that the last 6 months the bulk of the aid that's gone out is generators that's going to displaced families and isolated communities in Ukraine.
Yeah, the thing about the generators is fascinating. I was just curious about whether, I assume you're not getting generators donated directly. So is this a sort of fundraising activity for you to go and purchase those to then supply them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The last trip, which was in March, we arrived in Romania on the 3rd anniversary of the Russian invasion, and we delivered 40 generators, and those were paid for by the generous donations of Bristol Masons. Pat started a fundraising Just Giving page in probably November last year with the aim of raising £8,000. We raised £12,000, and that went towards paying for 40 generators. Some lodges donated £1,000. Others, individuals, donated to pay for one generator. So not only did we have 40 generators in the 2 trucks, but also humanitarian aid, food, first aid, that sort of thing. And our aim was to be in Romania and meet the Ukrainians on the 3rd anniversary, which we managed to do.
Is this all being transported, I assume, by road?
Yes.
You know, transporting aid across Europe is quite a significant commitment.
It was fun.
It's funny you said, 'cause I was going to ask you, what motivates you and your fellow volunteers to sort of keep going and doing this mission after mission after mission? Because that's a long way to drive and back, and packing vans, and I don't know how many you take, but there's a lot involved with that, I think.
I can only talk about the last mission, which is the one I was involved in. I obviously first heard about this a couple of years ago when Pat mentioned it and other members of the Bristol province mentioned it. And so I spoke to Pat at our Provincial Grand Lodge meeting last September and asked if I could volunteer. So it started from there, and we went out and collected and packaged things at the charity headquarters before we set off. So it was an interesting journey, if I can say that. We totaled 2,900 miles in 6 days, there and back. Wow. 4 of us went. So a driver and, if you like, a co-pilot, although in our case we did the driving, so we just had a co-pilot keep us awake and keep us entertained, if you like. When we got to Romania, we met the Ukrainians. The charity had already purchased another couple of pallets of food, which they put into the vans that they'd driven across from Ukraine. It took them a day to get to where we were meeting. And then we transported all our aid into their vans and sent them on their way. And since then, we've seen many videos of the generators and the aid given out to Ukrainians.
Would you say that seeing those videos of the impact of the work that you're doing, does that continue to motivate you to want to keep going and doing more?
Absolutely, yes.
On the flip side of that, I was going to say also that it must have quite an emotional toll, this whole journey. I mean, you're going... As we mentioned in the introduction, this is humanitarian aid. You know, you're trying to help people who are less fortunate than ourselves.
It was a very emotional handover, I can say that. Yeah,
I'm sure, and that must be difficult, but I'm sure rewarding as well.
It does make it rewarding, and the first journey that I went on, you know, you're full of energy for those first 3 days because you've got a really tangible mission. And then you complete your mission, you hand over this aid, but at that point, your job's done, and you wave these guys back to their war, and it really is emotionally draining. You're tired. You're driving 14 hours a day for several days on end, and it really
and
does.
I'm sure you're left with your thoughts on your way back.
Very, very much so. Empty vans. And a lot to contemplate on your way back about, you know, really how fortunate that we are to not be in that situation.
I almost feel like the journey back would almost, I think, be tougher than the journey there, because I feel like on the journey there, you've got your mission in mind, you know what you're going to do, you've got the purpose, and on the way back, you're sort of, as you've touched on, you're sort of left to reflect on, yes, you've done this amazing thing. It is truly amazing what you do. But yeah, this sort of, as you say, they've had to go back to their reality, and you're going back to your reality, which are 2 very, very different realities. So that's quite a stark.
It is. It's a very different
thing.
Journey the one coming home. But don't get me wrong, it's a hugely rewarding experience.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, Masons across Bristol and across England and Wales have supported the Ukrainian cause in different ways. You know, people have opened their doors and continue to host Ukrainian families, fundraise in different ways. And this was a really tangible way of getting involved that captures the imagination and means that people do want to keep supporting it because they can see the value in it.
So talking a little bit more about that, particularly the role within the community. So obviously we know that Freemasonry places a strong emphasis on service, community engagement, these sorts of things. How do you think this particular initiative has strengthened the bonds within your community and, I guess, engaged others within that community in supporting what you're doing?
I think there was a call from our provincial Grand Master a couple of years ago to really be more open about the charity that Masons do. There's so much that we do that goes unnoticed, and we've become very good at doing it under the radar. But what that means is we're now in 2025, and there still seems to be this mystery and about Masonry and what we do. And so this was a great opportunity to engage directly with a small community group that's full of volunteers, but has also itself sort of garnered quite a lot of public attention. Mm-hmm. So when Alan and the last team went off in March, we had a really good gathering of volunteers. We had the Lord Lieutenant of Bristol attending, and she's been a great proponent of the charity, but also to hear the Lord Lieutenant saying how great it is that the Masons are supporting in this way. Mm-hmm. That really hit home that actually we are doing something good here to sort of break down some of the stigma and the mystery around what Masons do. Yeah.
So this is a collaboration from Bristol with Love, of course. How's working with that? We were just mentioning about community engagement. Of course, it's not just community engagement with those in need. It's engaging people who believe in the same causes that we do. How is that? How have you seen that sort of integrate within the community as well, not just through the Lord Lieutenant, but?
Well, I think, as Pat said, when we left on our last mission, there was probably 40 or 50 people, not only Masons, but also those involved in the charity headquarters. So it was good. We packed the vans. We arrived in the morning and loaded the vans up. That took us a goodly while. And those involved in the charity, we still collect every week and pack up. So planning the next mission in May. Not sure who's going to be driving yet, but there's been 78 missions in total.
Wow.
Of which Bristol Masons have been involved in 6, I think.
It's incredible. And is there anything you think you've really taken away from that partnership, not just doing the incredible missions that you're doing?
I think it's the fundamental good that we do. And as said, it's a high, if it can be described as a high, when you're travelling to meet the fact that you've been personally involved in packing, in buying, and then when you get there and you meet the Ukrainians, and they are very, very grateful for the small amount that we do. And then when the aid that we've given them, the generators and other bits and pieces, we can see the videos of where they've taken the aid to the population of Ukraine. I mean, that's very moving. Can't understand what they're saying, but it's very moving.
I have to say, though, I think in answer to your question, it's been really heartwarming to see that it's not just Masons that do this charitable work, and actually to see other members of the community give up their weekends to collect aid and pack boxes and label it. There's an awful lot of work that goes into preparing these missions, and so it has really brought us into better partnership with the general community. And it is encouraging that there is still that goodwill. And I think generally we're a very charitable nation, and people like still to get involved in tangible ways for people in need.
As From Bristol with Love implies, yeah.
Indeed, indeed.
On the theme of sort of people getting involved and us being a charitable nation, I'm sure there'll be people listening to this who think they might want to help in a similar way or get involved. So for those people, what advice would you give about organising and delivering aid effectively, but also making sure it reaches those who need it most? And that could apply to this situation or any other situation, actually. What sort of words of wisdom could you give about doing something like this?
I think we benefit from the fact that we are very close and involved with the Bristol charity, and that stems through Pat's contacts. So we drive everything through that. So we've raised the funds, we speak to the charity, and that it's best that we deal through them. They tell us, the Ukrainians tell us what they need. So recently it was generators. It may be something else in the future. So we can target our aid and target our gathering of aid towards what the Ukrainians need, not what we think they need. It's better that they tell us.
And what is that impact that you have? What is it that they need really? I don't just mean by specifically certain items. What is it that you're providing really as volunteers that I guess is unique?
So one of the fundamental messages that comes back is that they're not forgotten. That that there are state level efforts to support Ukraine, but for them to know that at an individual level, people across Britain continue to give their time and their money and their effort to support their cause is hugely important, and gives them hope that that they're not fighting an unwinnable battle. If I go back to your question as well about how do people get engaged, I would just say that there are thousands of grassroots charities out there that you can get involved with. I think that we all give money and collect money for big charities, but in terms of the value of every pound that meets the recipient, I think getting involved with grassroots charities is where you can really get best bang for your buck. So it's just about doing some research, a bit of due diligence, and going and engaging with these groups that need our support, and start somewhere. Talk to your brethren in your lodges and your provinces, and just try to build some support wherever it needs to be.
This has been really interesting. I think a really good way to end. Obviously, none of us are. Well, I know certainly us three. None of us are geopolitical experts, and neither should we try to be. None of us can predict what's going to happen in the next year or whatever with the conflict, and that's obvious. But is it a case of you guys are there for them for as long as they need it? I mean, how do you see the future of the work that you're doing? Is it continuing? And sort of picking up from James's question, if there was someone out there who wanted to help, is that something that they're able to do?
It's a good question. For the time being, the charity is continuing as is. I've become an advisory member to the board now because of my involvement. So they very much are still going. We've got missions planned in May and June. So if people want to get involved, they can still donate directly or reach out to the charity to put themselves forward as a volunteer. The core focus of the charity was to support Ukraine at war. Yeah. So there's a question mark over when whatever settlement it happens, whatever deal is done, what is the role of the charity beyond that? But that doesn't mean that the work stops and that.
And of course, the focus is on those suffering, and if there are, as long as there are people suffering, then you'll be there to support. I'm sure.
Very much so. It won't end just because a deal is signed.
Yes,
it will go on. Lots of damage to repair.
And so it may just become incumbent on Masons directly to look at other ways of providing that enduring support while Ukraine rebuilds.
And if there are Masons then that want to get involved directly with this specific project, can they get in touch with you, or just you direct them to the charity?
The charity is very Bristol based, so 100%. I think we've made so much noise about it in Bristol that I think Bristol Masons know where to come. But if from across the country, I'd be very happy to sort of share some experiences and some advice on how to make those links, and can certainly make connections with our counterparts in Ukraine. That they'll be over the moon if there are other provinces that want to get involved and increase the amount of support that we're giving.
Brilliant. Well, Pat and Alan, thank you very much for your time, and good luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again for having us.
Well, what an insightful and interesting conversation that was. It's always great to sort of be reminded of quite how impactful Freemasonry can be, both to our own communities and obviously, around the world. So yeah, really interesting. What did you guys think?
For me, because it's a local charity in Bristol, and I know there are equivalent charities doing similar things. As a Freemason that may have donated to that cause through my lodge, to be able to literally see where my money has gone, and that I've got brethren who I probably know have made that journey, delivered that aid, seen the impact that it's made. I think sometimes when you donate money, you don't always appreciate what happens with it. But when you actually see the real life impact of where your money is going, I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and for me, I really liked how much it highlighted, you know, our third pillar of community engagement, that service value that we all hold to each other, to our fellow brethren, to our community, to the rest of the world. And I really, you know, feel that was obviously an undercurrent and seen throughout that entire episode that we've just recorded. So yeah, I love the conversation for that in particular.
Great. Well, James, I think it's high time for you to do your normal bit.
For you to assist me to close the podcast.
Exactly.
Yes, don't forget you can follow us on X at UGLE_Grand Lodge. We are United Grand Lodge of England on Facebook and Instagram. And you can email podcasts@ugle.org.uk.
I was laughing at Sean's reaction, not you, don't worry.
That's quite all right.
You're so good at that.
I do
Thank
often
you.
laugh at you, but not on this case.
Yes. Well, normally we're laughing at you as well, so it's all good. But on that note, we will see you all very soon.
See you soon, guys.
See you next time.
Craftcast, the Freemasons podcast. The podcast is hosted by Sean Butler, Stephen Watley and James Dalton. And the podcast is edited by Trisonic.